right. So you work for Sylvamo, which I saw means the love of forests, which
Yeah.
is really nice. How did you get your start in the paper industry?
So I started in the paper industry in 2013 as an intern for International Paper. It was my junior year of college, and I was in the engineering program at Mississippi State. And most of the engineering students need an internship in order to graduate. And so I went to the career fair and I saw the International Paper table and I walked up, and then that's how I got an internship there. So I took a semester off and moved back home to Memphis and worked in the papers group at IP. And so before my internship was up, they offered me a job to come back and work there after I graduated. So then I started my full-time job in 2014. So
Okay, and given how many types of engineering there are, what is your specialty?
so I studied industrial engineering,
Oh,
which is
okay.
a lot about, yeah, so it's a lot about like efficiencies, process flow. There are a few industrial engineers that kind of make their way into the supply chain world. So that's kind of, where I came from.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Um, and can you explain what Sylvamo's ESG strategy is?
Absolutely. So number one, I think, I love talking about just how renewable and sustainable paper is in general, especially the manufacturing of it, because there's definitely a misconception just in the world and people outside of the paper industry that, using paper is bad or that it reduces the amount of trees that we have. And none of those things are true. Like you said, it's extremely renewable. It incentivizes landowners to responsibly manage their forests rather than sell their land, for it to be commercially developed. So where Sylvamo sort of fits into that is we source 100% of our fiber that goes into making our paper from certified forests, meaning these forests are either certified with the FSC certification or the SFI certification or the PEFC certification. So we take that very seriously. Most of our fiber is purchased from private landowners, so we're very conscious of where we're buying the fiber and making sure that it is sustainable. So some other things that Sylvamo is focused on is, like you said, just clean manufacturing. We actually reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by 38% since
Oh,
2010.
that's impressive.
Yeah, so we're working really hard, just to kind of obviously do less with the greenhouse gases and putting all of those out. And we're working to reduce it even further by 35% in the near future, and then hopefully define a pathway to zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. So I'm really proud of our sustainability group. I think they've got a very narrowed focus on the greenhouse gas piece. But the other part of it is that Sylvamo actually generates more than 75% of the energy at our mills from carbon neutral biomass residuals. So I think that's also really impressive that, most of it is coming from carbon neutral products. So I think that's great. The other thing that Sylvamo does that's really neat is, you think about the paper making process and how much water is needed to make paper. And a lot of times I think manufacturing facilities get a bad rap because we do use so much water, but actually very little is consumed. So while our paper mills take in a lot of water, that water actually gets returned to the environment cleaner than when we took it in. So it gets used, cleaned, flushed out, and then we put it back. So we're not consuming as much as I think the common perception is.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then one of Sylvamo's 2030 goals is to give women more opportunities. Can you speak to any female mentors you've had in the industry and the advice that they've given you, especially as a female engineer?
Yeah. So I feel like I've had several official and unofficial female mentors in my career. Definitely, I would say so far the majority of people that I work and interact with are males. And so the ones that are females, we kind of tend to stick together and help each other out. But so I'm a mother of two. And so before I had kids, I would kind of look up to other women who are a little bit older than I was, who already had kids, and kind of use them as a model for, how to do the working mom gig. Because before I had kids, I'd always picture myself having a family one day and what's that going to look like? What's that going to mean for my career? And so having other women in the industry ahead of me who were doing that and doing it well was very encouraging for me. And I would just sort of, ask them whether we were friends or coworkers or whatever, just be like, hey, how's it been for you? How was that transition for you? And that was just really encouraging and gave me a lot of hope that it was absolutely doable, to continue advancing in your career while you're a mom, even to multiple kids. Officially, though, so through the NPTA, we had Jan Gottesman came to speak to us a few weeks ago, and she was, giving us some of her tips and things that she's learned along the years about leadership. One of the things that she shared with us is that leadership is a choice and not a talent that you're born with. And that really stuck with me because I think I've always heard, or maybe I've always thought that, some people are born leaders and some people aren't. And maybe that's true, but maybe also, like she said, it's more of a choice that anybody can choose to make every single day, to be a leader, to display leadership characteristics. So I thought that was really a really good line from her.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that makes perfect sense. When people think of leaders, they think of, strength, and is that innate, or they think of opportunities, and are those innate? But is delegation a learned skill? Because that's part of leadership. That's definitely a learned skill. Or the humility to take responsibility. That's especially a learned skill. So yeah, I really like that too.
Absolutely. And I think leaders are always learning, right? Like if you're a true leader, you've never, reached the peak of your ability to learn and to adapt and to change. That's what I think makes a leader, is somebody who's always learning and adapting and changing. So yeah, that's a critical part of leadership.
Yeah, 100%. What continues to inspire you in your own career?
So I think being in the paper industry, something that I did a few roles back when I was in a marketing research role was doing a lot of studying and reading on the power of print and the positive impact that it has on people. There's just something that print does when you hold it and you engage with it and you touch it and you feel it and you interact with it, that we don't get as much nowadays in the digital world, where we're in front of a screen so much. And that digital fatigue is real. And so I just love the concept of, whether it's a piece of mail or a book or whatever it may be, that's powerful and it's effective when it comes to marketing. It's meaningful. And there's so much research and studying out there that looks at, what's happening in someone's brain when you're touching and interacting with a print piece, and just the positive impacts that it has, even on students, how they can learn better and remember more when it's in print. So I think that is just inspiring, I guess, being in the paper industry and knowing that what we're doing and what we're providing it still has a place in the world. And it's a meaningful one, and it's positive as well. I feel like there's, again, another misconception is that, print is dead or it's dying or whatever. And maybe in some areas, but I think in other areas, it'll always be around, or it's even growing in popularity because of that digital fatigue that a lot of people are starting, to realize. So pretty cool.
And for my last question, can you speak to something new that you've learned about the industry that has changed the way you approach your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I have just recently, I moved from marketing over into sales for Sylvamo, and I'm working closely with a few more experienced kind of veteran sales reps in our organization, and I've been traveling around with them to see their customers. And one thing that I've noticed is that it is very, very much a relationship-driven industry. And many of the people that work in the paper industry have been doing the same thing for decades. And so they've got very long-standing relationships with a lot of different people across the industry, and just how much that means to them, and how, I think business works really well when it's built off of trust and relationship, and there just is so much of that in the paper industry. And so now that I'm in sales, that sort of changes the way that I'm interacting with my internal colleagues, and definitely my external customers as well, just kind of building that trust, building that relationship, because I definitely think it matters when it comes to doing business with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And no matter how large a company is, it's still made of people, and people will always want the personal in their lives. So
Exactly. And I think that connects really well to paper too, because paper is one of those things that you can touch and engage with. And that's kind of, I feel like the customer service aspect of even a manufacturing industry should be the same, right? We should be able to connect and engage on a personal level with our customers.
is there anything else that you wanted to discuss about Sylvamo or your role in the industry?
Well, I'm glad we're doing this, because since Sylvamo is a newer company, not a lot of people know our name. And so hopefully this is just another way to sort of get the Sylvamo name out there. I think a lot of people know International Paper since they've been around for a while. So we're doing all we can to let our customers know and just let the industry know who Sylvamo is. And that while we are a new company, we've got still the same great brands, hundreds of years of experience, same mills and all of that. So we're kind of making a splash in the industry with our new name, but everything else is the same but better at the same time.
Okay.